Welcome, everyone. I'm glad you all can join us tonight. This is going to now become a bi-monthly series. So our next one will actually be the second Thursday in July. So I hope you guys will tune in then. We're going to continue to talk about meaningful and relevant topics that you guys hopefully will find interesting. And we're always looking for feedback. So if you have suggestions on things that you want to hear, please reach out to us. I'm Shelly Long, the Manager of Communications at Family Houston, and I'm back again tonight to host this Facebook Live. Before I start asking our guests questions, if you have a question that you want answered about relationships, you can message us privately here on Facebook, or you can just comment below, and we'll make sure that Pierre and Stephanie answer them for you. So tonight, I am joined by senior clinicians at Family Houston, Stephanie Ballesteros and Pierre Mata. So Pierre has a Bachelor of Arts in Pastoral Studies from the Moody Bible Institute in Chicago, Illinois, and he has a Master of Arts in Behavioral Sciences, Family Therapy from the University of Houston at Clear Lake. He has been practicing for more than 15 years, and Stephanie has a Bachelor's in Clinical Psychology from the University of Barcelona, and also has a master's and is licensed in marriage and family therapy. And she was recently just certified as a sex therapist, and she's been practicing for over 5 years as well. So I hope you guys will both welcome me in joining Pierre and Stephanie tonight.
Hi,
I'm having a little trouble with Pierre up here tonight. Let's see what's going on over there. Let's see. There's Pierre. So welcome, guys.
Hi.
Thank you.
So I know tonight we're going to kind of be talking about relationships, how to make sure we're all keeping up with healthy ones, and maybe some things we can look for that might not be so healthy and how we can work on that. I'm just going to go ahead and jump right in, but let's start off with maybe some simple stuff. If you guys could maybe each share, Pierre, if you want to jump first, some basic tips that a couple can take into consideration while they're trying to maintain a healthy relationship.
So whenever I work with a couple, my two main goals are to help them strengthen their boundaries with each other, and also to have good, strong communication. And a boundary is essentially being able to tell your partner yes. Being able to tell your partner no, and being able to hear yes from your partner. So that means that you have to maintain clear boundaries with your partner. So it's important to maintain good boundaries with it for yourself in your relationship, and also maintain boundaries as a couple. So that means you want to have a balance. You don't always want to be saying yes, and you definitely don't always want to be saying no. So there should be a balance of getting to say no, but then also hearing yes. So that goes both ways. And usually couples come in because there's an imbalance. Somebody's always saying yes and somebody's always saying no. And then again, communication, and it's kind of a cliche, like how important communication is, but it really is important to communicate clearly and respectfully to your partner. And so that means being able to express your thoughts and your feelings, and being able to listen and understand your partner. And then, of course, being able to communicate about yourself.
Stephanie, do you want to jump in with you?
No, I agree with Pierre. I think there needs to be a really good balance with saying yes and saying no, because then there can be some built-up resentment from saying yes all the time to your partner and not saying what you want, what you need. And then the other person doesn't even know that you are not, that the partner is, not setting boundaries, and then there's resentment. The other person doesn't know that there's resentment. It's not even their fault. So I think that if we maintain that balance between saying yes and no, that can be very healthy. That can lead to a healthy relationship.
I think it's a good point. Communication really can solve almost every problem.
Yeah.
So, Stephanie, I'm going to point this question to you. There's a lot of difficult things going on right now: pandemic, financial concerns, health concerns, working from home, kids are home all the time. How challenging can it be for couples to navigate through all of this? And what advice can you give some people?
it's definitely very challenging. It's a big adjustment that families and marriages are going through right now. Especially people with children as well, you know, because they've been attending school from home, doing school work from home. So it's been challenging, especially as well if they're both are working from home, both the partners. So what I would recommend is laying out a plan from the very beginning. Well, the very beginning can be now; it's never too late. And laying out a plan with the daily routines, like the daily tasks. That includes as well, how is that going to look like? How, like, what times am I going to work? Or what time are you going to work? Who's going to be taking care of the children? I actually have a couple right now, and one of them wakes up really early in the morning, and then while the other one takes care of the children. And then when he's done with work, then the other one goes and work while he takes care of the children. So that's working out for them. And I think it's very important to just, like, you know, so that there's no surprises, there's no expectations or assumptions, and they both are on the same page. Also, to allow for personal space. I think that's very important because you don't want to be on top of each other. That can even hinder attraction, desire, and, you know, and then can ruin intimacy as well, you know. So allow for personal space. That's going to look like, if you can, that's going to look like maybe you work from one room, and then I'm going to be in a different room in our place, and that can help a lot. Also, do weekly check-ins with your partner. How is the relationship doing? How are you guys doing? Talk about your own feelings, how the successes as well. You don't have to necessarily sit down and talk about just negative stuff. You can talk about how we succeed as a couple, what things went well this week, what things were tough this week, and yeah, do weekly check-ins. And another one that I would recommend, strongly recommend, as cases are spiking here in Houston, is to have a plan just in case you guys get COVID, because you really need to know how that's going to look like financially, at work. Do you have the money maybe to support yourself and your family for 10 days or 2 weeks that you're going to be sick? Who's going to take care of the children if we get sick? And have a plan for that as well.
So a couple things. I'm saying a couple things that she mentioned are really important. I think it's important to deal with problems. Problems are going to happen in this particular situation, and so I think it's important to focus on the problems and not on each other when you guys are dealing with those kinds of things. And she mentioned about the check-in, and I think it's good to be communicating with your partner, but also not just always communicating around problems and issues and plans, but to make sure that you're spending quality time, to allow for positive interactions to take place, because that kind of, you know, humor and fun, it's important because we're all kind of stressed out. And like she said, when you're around each other 24/7 and you're around the kids and you have a bunch of responsibilities, it's really important to take care of yourself and to take care of your relationship. So I think that's also what I would add that as well.
Yes,
awesome. I think they're really great.
Yes. Go for a walk by yourself. Do some yoga by yourself. Do whatever you like doing, whatever you enjoy doing, cooking, painting, whatever that is by yourself. Have your own thing going on as well.
I think it's a good point here that you were talking about with the quality time. One of my friends was talking about how we might be spending, you know, almost every second with each other, but it's not necessarily quality time, you know?
Definitely.
So I think that's definitely important to pay attention to. Okay, I'm going to throw this back to both of you. What do you guys think are the most important things in a relationship? Stephanie, do you want to go first?
I'll go first. I think in general, not just during this time, but in general, to keep a relationship healthy, it's very important to recognize when your partner is throwing, I'm going to say a word and then I'm going to explain what this means, a term, bids for connection. This is a term coined by Gottman, and he explains that bids for connections are an attempt from one partner to another for attention, for affirmation, affection, or any other positive connection. And that can look like a smile, like a wink, like asking for help. And it's very important that the other partner recognizes that and is aware that, hey, my partner right now is throwing me a bit for connection. So I need to catch it and respond to it in a positive way, so that we keep that connection, intimate, deeper connection going. I hope that makes sense. I don't know if Pierre wants to add anything to that. Or
that's awesome. That's good.
Also, I think it's very important as well. Gottman said having a savings, having savings in the love bank account. That means that he said that every 5 positive acts, then when one negative act happens, all the 5 positive acts are taken away from the bank account. So it's important that we deposit a lot of positive acts in the bank account, so that when negative thing happens, then we're not left with nothing and we're left with red numbers. So that would be another one. Also, listen actively. If you're not interested, I always say, I know this sounds weird, but pretend that you're interested. We're not going to be interested in everything that our partner says. I'm not interested in cars. My partner is. So sometimes I'm like, yeah, you know. But sometimes we need to. It's not pretending in a bad way. It's like, hey, I'm here for you, and I care because you care. That's what it means. That doesn't necessarily mean that you are going to care for cars as well, and you're going to be there with them, you know, like building a car or whatever. But being there for them and listening actively. I don't know if Pierre wanted to add anything else. Those are some of the things. Okay. Also, making time for each other, just like he said, making time for each other, quality time, so that we connect intimately. It's awesome to connect and to get along great with your partner, but I think it's even better if you can get along in an intimate way, like not just great, but like being intimate in a deeper level. And also praise each other and reinforce positive behaviors, things that you like. When he does something for you or she does something for you, say, hey, I really like that. Thank you so much for doing that. And really be appreciative and recognize these little or big acts of kindness that your partner does for you.
So I didn't come up with 5, I had 4. I would say, first of all,
get off Facebook Live then.
I think the first one I would say, and it's something that comes up a lot, is honesty. And I think that we need to be honest about what we want and what we don't want, what we like and what we don't like. Your partner cannot read your mind. And I know it would be nice if our partners could read our minds, but they can't. So you want to be completely honest about your feelings and your thoughts and your needs. And then the other thing it's important is to, you know, some people will avoid telling their partner something because they don't want to get into a fight. They don't want their partner to get mad at them. And it really causes a lot of problems when you're not honest with your partner. So I would say, even though you might think, well, they're going to be mad because I went out with some friends or whatever, I say be honest, because once you lose the trust of your partner, it's really hard to regain that. The other thing I think is to be patient with each other, especially during this time. I mean, this is like, I don't know how many times I've heard it said, but it's unprecedented. There's no word to describe our experiences right now. And so I think we're gonna get on each other's nerves. We're gonna be frustrated with each other. So be patient. You know, your partner's a human being. They're not perfect. And so when they make a mistake, I think what I like to do is there's a phrase that says it's to a person's credit to overlook a fault. And so give your partner a break, and hopefully they will also give you a break when you make a mistake. The other thing is, this is something that a lot of people are aware of, is your partner's love language. And, you know, so you want to know what really is meaningful to your partner. You know, your partner may not appreciate gifts. Your partner may not appreciate, you know, like acts of service, they're called, or whatever. But you definitely want to communicate to your partner your appreciation, like Stephanie was saying, but in a way that they can understand and that's meaningful for them. So learn your partner's love language and try to meet some of your partner's needs. You can't meet all of your partner's needs, but you can meet some of them. And then this is a big one, is forgiveness. You know, when your partner makes a mistake, when your partner loses their temper, you know, I like to use the example of a car. The windshield in a car is huge, but the rear view mirrors are small and the side mirrors are small because our focus needs to be moving forward. Now, those mirrors are there because you don't want to pretend like stuff didn't happen, that, you know, hurts didn't happen. You want to be sensitive to your partner. So we are paying attention to what has happened. We don't want to ignore and pretend, oh, let's just move on from this hurt or whatever. No, we want to forgive, but also be patient and understanding that it's going to take some time for our partners to kind of mend from whatever the injury was. So I think those are some important things in a relationship.
I think that's a great analogy that people can probably visualize and use. So thanks, Pierre. And I actually dropped a link in for both of the Gottman, I think I'm saying that right, Stephanie, the 4 horses that you were talking about for people to learn a little bit about. And I also dropped in the 5 love languages that Pierre was mentioning. So if anyone wants to learn more about those, they're over in the comments section. So you guys can have those resources.
Yeah.
Stephanie,
they can go in and take the quiz, actually, and find out what's their love language.
And then you guys can report back to us.
There you go.
So Stephanie, I know that you actually were just on Fox News to talk about something similar to this. So I'm going to kind of mention this to you. There was an article that had been kind of circulating where the celebrity Pink had actually discussed couples therapy and how her husband had gone to this. So I know that maybe you could touch a little bit on maybe the effect that could possibly have in the public and maybe why there's a stigma around couples therapy.
Definitely. I think the impact this has, it can be very beneficial because, like I mentioned yesterday, it helps people realizing that we all have issues, that we all struggle with marital problems, and that also it makes it normalizes this for people going to therapy. Like you said, there's a stigma. So I think it normalizes this for everybody, saying, hey, I went to therapy and it was successful. So it's even better, you know, because that leads me to my next point. Sometimes people think, oh, I'm going to go to therapy. That means I'm failing. That means I'm not doing well. And no, I mean, you can go to therapy and be a success. So don't assume that you are weak, that this is a personal weakness, that you failed as a marriage, or that you didn't know any better. And like, oh my gosh, how can I not know any better? So don't be afraid. Don't have that fear of others judging you or judging your relationship. And if you need therapy, look for resources. We're here. There's resources for everybody. Insurance, sliding scale. It doesn't need to be pricey. Look for resources and ask for the help that you need. That's what I would say.
So I've had some really young couples, and like they've been married like 6 months, and they've come in and they're kind of embarrassed because they're like, man, we're already struggling. We already need therapy. And I tell them, no, this is wonderful. This is the best time. I don't know how many people have told me they've been married 20, 30 years. And they said, I wish we would have gone to therapy earlier in our marriage. And so this is not, I mean, there's no book, there's no training that you have to go through on how to be married, you know? So it is not, it's to me, I think it's a sign of wisdom and you know, and it shows a commitment to your relationship when you look for help. So that's yeah, there's no, and believe me, your therapist is not going to judge you or shame you or whatever.
No.
We're glad. That's why we joined, you know, became marriage and family therapy, so we can work with families and couples. So.
And I always say nobody's born knowing this. We actually, as professionals, we go to school to learn this. So please come to therapy so we can pass down this knowledge to you. You know, There's no classes in high school. There's no classes in middle school that teach you how to communicate in an assertive way, or how to navigate through these issues. So help so we can pass down this knowledge onto you.
And I can vouch for both of them and all of the counselors here. But you guys should all call them because they're fantastic. So some people, maybe they're not usually in a long distance relationship, but with COVID, they're, kind of having to social distance and not spend time together. And then I also know there's many relationships, whether that be due to military or just jobs and living in different cities and states that are long distance. Do you guys think you have some tips? Maybe Pierre, you want to jump in first about some ways that couples who are long distance can maintain a healthy relationship?
Actually, so I have worked with couples where they're either in the military or their jobs require them to be away, particularly like during the week. And so they come home on the weekends, and other times they're gone for extended periods of time. So one of the things I think is important is regular and scheduled communication. So what I don't think is good is to kind of expect that your partner is going to be available immediately every time you call. They could be busy with their job or with the children or whatever's going on. So you want to have a regular time, and if you can, make sure to schedule it. That way that things won't get in the way of your conversation. And it's great nowadays. You can communicate with your partner like Zoom and FaceTime and these video conferencing calls. I think they're wonderful tools that we can use. And so one thing that I strongly recommend is to limit texting. Texting is like one of the worst forms of communication. So you can't read, you can't get nuance, you can't get emotion or tone or anything. So I think, stick to voice or video conferencing. The other thing is when you get home, when you are home with your partner, well, first of all, make that a priority to try to get home or to try to visit your partner wherever they are, because that connection, that regular connection, like Stephanie was talking earlier about being able to spend time together and talk with each other and enjoy each other emotionally, physically, whatever, that's very important. So make time for your partner. And then also, this is something that causes a lot of problems, is that, you're doing your job, or if you're in the military, whatever, you can kind of forget that your partner is by themselves at home. So you want to make sure that they're not overwhelmed. And, if they are, then you want to do what you can. Now, obviously, you can't come home and help with the kids or whatever's going on, but you can send reinforcements, is what I would say. You can try to get people to come and help your partner while they deal with your absence. And then the other thing, I don't know if when you were in college and you ever got a care package. That's one of the the bright spots of going to the mailbox or whatever and getting something. And so, a letter, we don't write letters anymore. It's emails and text messages. That it's nice to get a card or a letter, and definitely, chocolate or whatever it might be, a picture, of your spouse. So make sure that you're showing these little acts of appreciation and kindness and care to your partner.
I think that's a great point about, the person who is either in the military or maybe they're the ones off on their adventure, to not forget that their spouse could be feeling very lonely, or their partner. And I think that's just really important. Also, Mom, if you're watching, I still like care packages. So if you can send that on. Stephanie, maybe you could share with us some signs that a relationship might need some work, and maybe it's time to seek out a, counselor.
I think that Pierre prepared this section a little better than I did. So I don't know if he wants to actually go ahead and answer this, and then I can jump in as well a little bit, if that's okay.
That's fine. So this is from the work of John Gottman, and this guy, if you want to read like the most current and popular author on relationships, his name is John Gottman. And the guy is he's a miracle worker, a marriage whisperer, if you will. And so this is some information that was taken from his work, and he talks about this pattern. What he says is, it's how we communicate with each other that often causes all kinds of problems. And so he gives this example. He says, for example, you're going to the bathroom and you find that your partner has left their towel on the floor. Very simple, a towel, right? And so you tell your partner, hey, you left your towel on the floor. Well, if your partner says, and doesn't care, that is going to really make you mad. But interestingly, your partner could be like, oh, I'm sorry, and hang up their towel. Well, if 2 or 3 days later you go into the bathroom and the towel is on the floor again, you're going to be mad because your partner really didn't change. So one thing is when your partner is expressing some frustration, they need to be, the complaint needs to be acknowledged and it needs to be dealt with in an effective manner. Because if not, then that complaint is going to turn to criticism. And none of us, you always leave your towel on the floor. You're such a slob. And so that, to me, obviously, you think about it, that's, first of all, nobody always does something. You know what I'm saying? Your partner's going to think about the last time they hung up their towel. And then the other thing is to call your partner names is not helpful. So, and it's interesting, people say, oh, they always get so defensive. They always get so defensive when I point something out. Well, if you're calling your partner a slob and you're saying they always do something, they would get defensive. They would want to protect themselves. But criticism, complaints can turn to criticism, which is going to be met with defensiveness. And that's not, we don't like when people become defensive. So one of the danger signs then is when you begin to treat each other and view each other with contempt. And this is not good. When you start to roll your eyes and are you sigh or there you go again or whatever, you're at a very bad place, because then the very next thing is stonewall. And this is when people say we're like roommates and we are not communicating, we're not interacting with each other. And it can be scary how long a couple can go without saying anything to each other at all. I'm talking like days, several days. And that's an unhealthy relationship. So if you're seeing problems in your communication, you feel like you're not being listened to, you feel like you can't resolve your problems and there's no resolution. And so you leave the problems unsolved. This is a sign that your relationship is not in a good spot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you said days, but sometimes people go years in like autopilot as well. Say, oh, we live like roommates since it's been years, and it's like I've been living in autopilot, and I didn't even, I realized, but I didn't sit down to really, really think about all this. So it's really scary, like Pierre was saying. So if you are experiencing any of these signs, sit down, talk to your partner, and see what's going on, and maybe you want to seek help, they're counseling.
I think those are some great points. I think that the word roommate, I definitely have heard a lot of, I've heard that a lot mentioned, and I think that's a really good point that, you don't want to be roommates with your partner, your spouse. So I think that those are some great things to notice about if you might need to seek help. But maybe one step farther. So there's times when, your relationship's just struggling and you just need to get some help. But what are some traits that you could say, Pierre, maybe that are toxic or maybe even potentially abusive, whether that be physical, emotional, or verbal, or a lot of times someone will throw around the term red flags, like run, like what are some things that people really could actually look out for?
Well, so one of the things that as a marriage and family therapist is that we very often look for, we are very curious, not just about what's going on in your own family, your own relationship, but we ask about what are things like in your family. So very often we see patterns of disrespect, abuse, neglect, that cause. Do I need to unplug something, Shelly? I'm getting some feedback. Are we okay now?
I think so.
Okay. Anyway, so we want to pay. So definitely, if you come from a family where there is been domestic violence, then you are going to recognize some of these signs already because you're familiar with it. And so some things that you want to be aware of are, intimidation. When a partner is either verbally or emotionally tries to intimidate you, that's not a good. That's a scary kind of a thing, and that is toxic. Because instead of intimidating, we should be able to communicate what we want, what we feel, what we need, without trying to coerce somebody. And then, so that's the other one, coercion. We talked about being able to tell your partner no. Well, some people don't like no. And so if you tell your partner no and they don't respect your no, and they try to coerce you, and they repeatedly over and over again and won't leave you alone about something that you've said no, that's not a good sign. That's a toxic symptom. If your partner isolates you from your friends or from your family, again, your partner, healthy relationships outside of your marriage actually strengthen your relationship with your spouse or your partner, because you don't have to carry all the weight, the needs of your partner. So when you have friends you can go hang out with, when you go talk to your family or whatever, that relieves your partner of some of that responsibility. So you would think it's normal, and it is normal, to encourage and say, oh yeah, babe, go talk to your friends, go hang out with your friends or whatever. And so if your partner doesn't respect that and is trying to isolate you, that is very toxic. There's some emotional abuse, and there's terms like gaslighting. These are very popular. Ghosting. When someone is acting in a passive aggressive manner, that is a very unhealthy and a very toxic communication way to communicate. One of my colleagues, she told me that she worked with somebody and was talking about that the husband was passive aggressive, and she said there's nothing passive about your husband's aggression. So, and I think, it's sad, but it's that passive aggressive behavior. It's very childish, and it's very frustrating, and it's unhealthy. It's disrespectful. So, economic abuse. If you don't have access to the money that you both contribute to your bank account, or even if you don't both contribute, you're a team, your partnership. So you should both be able to get the resources that you need. And if you're not getting that, if you don't have access to that, that is a very unhealthy sign. And you would wonder, what are the motivations for that? Sometimes also, when you make a complaint, if your partner minimizes it, if your partner denies it, or if your partner blames you, that's also not healthy. Some people, they get to the thing, they say, Pierre, am I crazy? Am I crazy? Yeah. And I say, no, you're not crazy. You're sane, but his behavior is trying to give you the impression that you're the one. This is all your fault, and there's no responsibility on their part. So this is another sign of an unhealthy relationship. And then the last one is male privilege, and that's when, well, I'm the man of the house and blah blah blah, I'm the head of the house, and so to me, we should be respectful of each other, and not if you're a man, you should be respectful of your spouse and treat her with respect, and not like a servant or an object or anything like that. So
interesting. So I think, Pierre, what could someone do if they find themselves in a situation like that? Do you have any resources or advice?
Yes, so definitely, one of the things you have to be careful about, and Stephanie and I are very careful when we are meeting with somebody who's coming in because of domestic violence, and sometimes they won't even say that they're coming in for domestic violence. And so what we try to do, we try to be very, very discreet. And I can assure you that if you call one of these resources, one is Houston Area Women's Center, and the other one, if you're out in in the Bay Area where I work, it's the Bay Area Turning Point. Another place to access, because they have domestic violence agencies all over the Houston area. To find one close to you, I'd recommend calling the United Way helpline. It's 211 just dial 211 and you say, I need some domestic violence resources, and they'll connect you. They'll give you some. But be discreet, because some people that are abusive, some partners that are abusive, would feel threatened by this and would try to harm or threaten or whatever. So be discreet. You could definitely meet with a therapist, because maybe you're not sure, does what's going on, does the toxic nature of your relationship, does it meet the criteria of an abusive relationship? And a skilled therapist will be able to give you some honest feedback about the nature of your relationship.
Yes, oh, I wanted to add something. Also, if you come in as a couple, what I usually do, and I think maybe Pierre does it too, on the very first session or the second session, I really try to separate them both so that I can assess for domestic violence. It's not always the case. It's not something that it's super common, but sometimes the woman would say, hey, I feel in danger. And I'm like, hey, do I need to look for a resource for you right now before you leave this place? Do you feel that you're going to be in danger once you leave here? So I offer that possibility to my clients. So even if you come as a couple, I will separate you guys. Well, now everybody knows my secret, but that's what I would do, so that if anybody feels they're in danger, I can help them with that.
I think that's a really great resource that you offer, Stephanie, that people might not even know. They might just be scared and don't know how to voice it, but you're offering them a safe space separate to share with them, share with you what really could be, worrying them.
So can I add one more thing? I'm not an expert in domestic violence, but I actually have a lot of experience working with victims of domestic violence and perpetrators. And one of the things that I was talking to a colleague, and there's certain behaviors that are particularly troubling. Obviously, if your partner is hitting you physically, that your body is in danger. But there's been some research that one of the worst things is when a partner grabs and is choking the other partner. This is very often is an indication that great physical harm, I'm talking about death, is possible. So you would want to take that kind of thing very seriously. And one of the things that I say, if you are in immediate danger, is to call 911, because your life and the lives of your children are more important. You say, well, he's going to be mad or blah, 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 whatever. And I think in some situations, it's better to be alive. You can deal with the aftermath and the anger and all that stuff, but your life is precious, and the life of your children is precious. So I say in those situations where you're in immediate danger, I would call 911.
I think that's definitely important, and that anyone who is in immediate danger should just, let's reiterate, to call 911. But if it's not immediate danger, that, as Pierre said, the United Way helpline, 211 is a great resource, as well as the Houston Area Women's Center and many other resources. You can also reach out to us at family@familyhouston.org, and we can also give you some resources. And we also have a bunch of resources listed on our website. So if there's anything like that, please feel free to visit our website to find some more, or contact us, and we will try and get you connected. Say that, maybe let's go back to maybe not being in a abusive or, toxic relationship, but it's more of just one that needs some work and some help to get through some of these tough times. Stephanie, what kind of therapist should someone look for who wants to go to couples therapy?
I think that it's best if they look for a marriage and family therapist. LPCs can work with them as well, and LCSWs as well. I just think that our background, I'm an LMFT, I'm a marriage and family therapist, and so is Pierre. So I think that we are trained for 2-3 years specifically to work with couples, to work with more than one person in the room. So they train us of how to handle these dynamics, how to handle people arguing in a room, how to handle all that. And sometimes that can be challenging. So I would say look for a marriage and family therapist. Also, I would add if it's couples counseling and you're experiencing intimate issues, then of course sex therapists can help you as well. And I'm one, so that's why I'm saying that. But in general, LMFTs, marriage and family therapists, can help you with relationship issues, LPCs as well, and LCSWs too.
So,
and then second, go on, Pierre.
I was just going to add, jump on there. The kind of therapy or theory behind our practice is called systems theory. And so what we are very interested in is not just what's going on in the immediate family, but we are very curious about your own family, the experiences you had when you were a child, and how your mom and dad got along, if there was divorce, if there was infidelity, if there was domestic violence. And so we are aware of the dynamics, because you might think, man, I never wanted to marry someone who's an alcoholic. I never wanted to marry someone who would cheat on me. And then you end up right in the very situation. So we would kind of repeat our patterns. And if you do a family tree, you would be surprised that some of the issues that you and your partner are having are problems that your grandparents had, that your great-grandparents had, because these things get passed down from generation to generation. And so you want to break the cycle of dysfunction in your family. And definitely for your own marriage, but then for your children, if you have children. So strongly recommend a marriage and family therapist for couples.
Interesting. So to kind of add on to that question, so maybe now someone has decided to come and see a marriage and family therapist. So if they were to come see one right now, it's probably going to be remote. Stephanie, I'm going to go to you, because I think you and I were actually talking about this, and you gave me an example of how this can actually work, because I imagine some people might be hesitant of wondering, well, we can't come in and see someone, so can this therapy actually work right now?
I think it can definitely work. And the example I gave you the other day is that I was seeing a couple, and he was actually sick with the COVID. So they were in different spaces. He was at his place, she was at his place, at her place. And so they both, I shared the link for Zoom with the both of them, and they were on at the same time. So the three of us were having this session while the two of them were separated physically. So I thought that was actually pretty cool. And that's something that we couldn't have offered in person because he was sick. So he wouldn't have been able to come into the office. So that's one of the advantages that I found about doing online counseling. And definitely, while virtual therapy is different than going to a therapist's office, I think that the dynamics that are necessary for couples therapy to work are present as well in virtual settings. So I don't think those change much.
Do you have anything
or online? Oh,
I think I used to do home-based therapy, and I really liked it. That's early in my career, because when people feel comfortable, they're more likely to feel comfortable talking about issues and sharing. And so if I'm doing teletherapy with a couple and they're in their home, I have found that this actually is helpful to the process. I mean, you think about it, you're going into somebody's office and you've never been there before, and you don't know this person or whatever. It can be kind of intimidating and scary. Well, being in your home, in the comfort and safety of your home, and then it's like having someone come over to your house and maybe talking and sharing. You feel much more at ease, and so it helps with the process. And what is interesting is I have still been able to observe the interaction between a spouse and the nonverbal. Even so, I'm like looking at the screen and I can see the eye rolling, or hear the sigh or whatever, and the shifting in their seat, or the client's way back there. You see all these different dynamics, and so it is. I'm actually meeting with several couples right now, and it is very well. Obviously, face to face is to me is optimum, but this is not diminished the ability to get some things accomplished if you do virtual therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Those were all the questions I have. Do either of you guys have anything else you want to add before we end the session tonight?
I don't know.
No.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for joining me tonight and sharing your knowledge with all of us. I really appreciate you taking your time tonight.
No, thank you, Shelly. Thank you.
And thank you all for tuning in and joining us this week. So I hope you guys learned some ways that you can work on your relationship, make it healthier, and maybe even realize if you're not in the best relationship for you. Family Houston is here for you. So if you are looking for a therapist, you can call us. If you need help with financial stability or case management with basic needs, like, we are here for you. So please call us 713-861-4849. And as I mentioned earlier, we're now going to be doing these Facebook Lives bi-monthly. So we will be back on July 9th to share more relevant and meaningful topics with you. So thank you all again for joining us tonight, and have a good weekend.